If you looked at a map of the world in, say, 1980, the Soviet Union just looked permanent, eternal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It covered a sixth of the Earth's land surface. It had this massive nuclear arsenal, total control over Eastern Europe.
And then by Christmas 1991, it was just gone.
It just evaporated. It wasn't a
Yeah.
war. It wasn't some cataclysm. It just dissolved.
Exactly. And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're zeroing in on those crucial years, 1985 to 1991, to try and understand the actual mechanism of that collapse. I mean, how does a superpower basically commit suicide?
And the source material we're looking at today, which, by the way, is perfect if you're revising for your IGCSE history, frames it in this fascinating way. It wasn't an attack from the outside.
No.
It was an attempt to fix things from the inside. This is really the story of one man, Mikhail Gorbachev, who tried to renovate the house and, well, accidentally knock out all the load-bearing walls.
So let's start there with the architect himself. Gorbachev takes power in March 1985, and right away, he just doesn't fit the mold of the old Soviet leaders.
Not at all. And the sources point to this incredible duality in his own family background that sort of explains everything that comes next.
It's amazing. Tell us about that.
Well, on one side of his family, his grandfather was a committed, card-carrying communist, a true believer.
Okay.
But on the other side, his other grandfather was a kulak, a landowning peasant, who was arrested and imprisoned by Stalin.
So you've literally got the oppressor and the oppressed in the same family tree.
Precisely. And that split really seems to manifest in how he governed. The text breaks him down into two sides, the realist and the idealist.
Let's unpack those, because that's a key point for any exam answer. What did the realist in him see?
The realist, well, he had eyes. He wasn't blinded by the propaganda. He could see the USSR was in terrible, terrible shape.
How bad was it?
The economy was completely stagnant. We're talking zero growth. They were decades behind the West in technology. And they were just bleeding money on two things. The arms race and a war in Afghanistan, they simply could not win.
So the realist says, the machine is broken and we are broke.
That's it, in a nutshell. But then there's the other side of him, the idealist. And this is the dangerous part.
Because he didn't want to get rid of communism.
No, not at all. He genuinely believed in it. He thought that if you just, peeled away all the corruption and the inefficiency and the lies, you'd find this perfect system underneath.
He was trying to purify it, not destroy it.
Exactly. To make life better for the people. A noble goal, but, well, we know how that turned out.
Right. So to fix things, he brings in these two Russian words that basically defined the entire late 80s.
Glasnost and perestroika.
These two always get mixed up, so let's get a really clear definition. What was he actually changing with perestroika?
Okay, so perestroika literally means restructuring. This is the economic part.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember, for 60 years, the free market was illegal in the Soviet Union.
Buying and selling for a profit was a crime. It was capitalism.
The enemy, exactly. But Gorbachev knew the state-run economy was dead on its feet. So perestroika allowed for some market forces. It wasn't full-blown capitalism, but it made it legal to buy and sell for profit for the first time in decades. He was trying to jumpstart the economy's heart.
Okay, that sounds sensible enough. But then he adds the second chemical to the mix, glasnost.
And glasnost means openness. This is the political side. Gorbachev realized he couldn't fix the economy if everyone was lying all the time about, production numbers and hiding all the corruption.
So he just tells people to stop lying.
Pretty much. He called for open debate. He told the press. He told the public, face up to our problems, tell the truth.
This is where I struggle with the logic. You've got a population that's been repressed for 70 years. The economy is in chaos because of these new reforms, which means prices are going up. And that's the moment you decide to let everyone complain about it publicly.
It was a lethal combination. Perestroika made life harder in the short term. Glasnost gave people the right to scream about how hard life had become.
He thought they'd attack the bureaucracy.
Right, that they'd help him fix the system. Instead, they used their new freedom to attack the entire communist system itself.
He opened the door a crack to get some fresh air.
And a hurricane blew the door clean off its hinges. That's a perfect way to put it. And he faced huge opposition from the hardliners in his own government who saw exactly where this was going.
Okay, so he's stirring the pot at home, but he's also completely changing how the Soviet Union deals with the rest of the world.
A total reversal. He pulls troops out of Afghanistan. He starts building a relationship with Ronald Reagan. But the real bombshell is what he tells the leaders of Eastern Europe.
This is the moment, isn't it? The turning point for the entire Soviet empire.
It is. March 1987. He gets all the Warsaw Pact leaders together, Poland, East Germany, all of them, and he basically tells them, you are on your own.
The source quotes him saying, relations of equality remain, which is just diplomatic code for the tanks are not coming to save you.
Exactly. For 40 years, the Brezhnev Doctrine had been the rule. If a communist country stepped out of line, the Red Army would roll in. Hungary in '56, Czechoslovakia in '68. Gorbachev just turned that tap off.
But what's so strange, and the source points this out, is that the hardline leaders in East Germany and Romania, they didn't really react. They didn't start reforming. Why not?
Pure denial. These were old, cynical dictators. To them, Gorbachev's ideas were just insane. They thought he was bluffing or that he'd be overthrown by his own people in Moscow any day now.
So they just ignored him.
They completely ignored his warnings to reform their own country. They just couldn't imagine a world where the Soviet Union didn't have their back.
Yeah.
It was a fatal, fatal miscalculation.
Wow. They were standing on a trapdoor. Gorbachev told them he'd unlocked it, and they just stood there smiling.
And while the leaders were in denial, the people were not. Which brings us to a really interesting part of the source material, the analysis of political jokes.
I love this section. It feels kind of trivial, but these jokes were a really important historical source, weren't they?
Oh, they're absolutely valid evidence. In a state where you can't speak freely, the joke is where the truth lives. It's the underground press.
So give us an example from the text.
Okay, there's the famous three dogs joke. A Polish dog, a Romanian dog, and a Hungarian dog are talking. The Polish dog turns to the others and asks, "What is meat?"
Ouch. A direct hit on the food shortages in Poland.
Exactly. Then the Romanian dog asks, "What is barking?"
Because the secret police, the Securitate in Romania under Ceausescu were so terrifying that no one dared speak out.
And the joke shows that everyone knew it. It's not just a joke, it's a piece of social analysis.
It's a map of oppression.
It is. And then there's an even darker one about Erich Honecker, the leader of East Germany. Yeah. He's visiting a school, they ask for money, he says no. He visits a hospital, they ask for money, he says no.
Okay.
Then he visits a prison, sees it's falling apart, and immediately writes this huge check for renovations. New mattresses, color TVs, the works. His aide is confused and asks why.
And what does Honecker say?
He says, "Where do you think we will be living in a few months?"
Wow. That's not just cynicism. That's an admission that the end is near. The fear was gone.
That is the absolute key. When the people lose their fear of the regime is already dead. It just hasn't fallen over yet.
And that fall comes in 1989, the domino effect. It is genuinely startling how fast it all happened once that threat of Soviet tanks was removed.
It's a chain reaction. It's not just a list of dates. One event directly triggers the next. And it all starts in May 1989 in Hungary.
They literally cut a hole in the Iron Curtain, the barbed wire fence on the border with Austria.
And that creates a backdoor to the West. And that backdoor is what ends up destroying East Germany.
Because East Germans could go on holiday to Hungary.
And just walk out. Thousands of them pour across the border into Austria and then on to West Germany. It's this massive exodus. The East German government starts to panic.
And by October, you have huge protests on the streets in East Germany. Gorbachev himself visits and essentially tells Honecker, "Deal with it yourself, I'm not sending troops."
Which brings us to the big one, November 9th, the Berlin Wall.
The ultimate symbol of the Cold War. And it doesn't fall because of a war. It falls because of a bungled press conference and thousands of people just showing up.
There's this visual from the sources that is so powerful. It's a photo of a protester on the wall hammering away at it with a sledgehammer.
While the East German border guards just watch from above.
They just watch. A year earlier, they would have shot him dead without the second thought. That image, for me, is the end of the fear.
Now, most of these revolutions were peaceful. The Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia, for instance, but not everywhere, right?
Mostly, yes. But Romania was the violent exception. In December, the revolution there turned bloody. The dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, he tried to use his security forces to fight back.
And it ended with his execution.
It did. Him and his wife executed on Christmas Day.
So by the end of 1989, the Soviet Empire in Eastern Europe is gone. But there's this huge piece of unfinished business from World War II, Germany.
Reunification. The second the wall fell, the West German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl, started pushing for it.
And Gorbachev was not a fan of this idea.
Not at all. I mean, you have to remember the Soviet trauma. Germany had invaded Russia twice in the 20th century. 20 million Soviet citizens died in the Second World War.
So the idea of a strong, united Germany, potentially in NATO,
was his absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
But again, the realist in him took over. He knew he couldn't stop it without using force, which he refused to do. Plus, The USSR was flat broke.
So it's a deal.
It was a deal. They needed financial aid from the West. So after some very tough negotiations, he agreed. On October 3rd, 1990, Germany was one country again.
Incredible. So Eastern Europe is free, Germany is united, but that reform virus, it doesn't just stop at the Soviet border, does it? It comes home.
This is the final act, the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. The virus of independence that swept Eastern Europe now infects the Soviet republics.
And it starts in the Baltics with Lithuania?
Yes. March 1990, Lithuania just declares independence. Says, we are not a part of the Soviet Union anymore.
And this time, Gorbachev does try to stop it.
He does. He tries an economic blockade. He even sends in a few troops. But he's trapped. The hardliners in Moscow are screaming at him to crush the rebellion, while the reformers are cheering Lithuania on.
And this is when a new rival really steps onto the stage. Boris Yeltsin.
The president of the Russian Republic, the largest of the 15 Soviet republics.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeltsin starts arguing that all the republics should be independent states. He's basically pulling the rug out from under Gorbachev.
If Russia leaves the Soviet Union, there is no Soviet Union.
There's nothing left. And this power struggle leads to the absolute climax of the entire story, the August coup of 1991.
It really reads like a political thriller.
It does. August 1991. The hardline communists, we're talking the prime minister, the head of the army, the head of the KGB, they've finally had enough. They decide to save the old system by force.
And they kidnap Gorbachev, essentially.
They hold him prisoner while he's on holiday in Crimea. Then they send tanks into the streets of Moscow and declare a state of emergency. They're trying to turn back the clock.
The Empire Strikes Back moment, but it completely fails. Why?
They forgot about glasnost. The people who poured into the streets weren't the compliant citizens of the 1970s. And crucially, Boris Yeltsin didn't run and hide.
The famous image of him standing on the tank.
That image changed everything. He climbs onto one of the tanks sent to crush the people and gives this defiant speech. The soldiers refuse to fire on their own citizens. The coup leaders lose their nerve, and the whole thing just collapses.
But the irony is, saving Gorbachev didn't save the Soviet Union.
No, in fact, it sealed its fate. The coup made Gorbachev look weak, betrayed by his own inner circle. And it made Yeltsin look like a hero.
So after that, the other republics just peel away.
One by one, they all declare independence. The center just cannot hold.
Which brings us to the final date. Christmas Day, 1991.
December 25th, 1991. Mikhail Gorbachev goes on television and resigns as president of a country that no longer exists. The Soviet flag is lowered from the Kremlin for the very last time.
Just gone. From superpower to history in 6 years.
A staggering timeline.
So let's wrap this up for anyone listening, maybe walking into an exam hall soon. What are the big why takeaways? How do you summarize this collapse?
Okay, I'd boil it down to 3 key revision points. First, Gorbachev's reforms, glasnost and perestroika, were meant to save communism, but they ended up exposing just how rotten the system was.
They revealed the disease instead of curing it.
Exactly. Second, his refusal to use force in Eastern Europe, that we won't intervene policy, was the key that unlocked the revolutions of 1989. Once the fear of the tanks was gone, the regimes crumbled.
And the third point.
It was an implosion, not an invasion. The collapse was driven by people power from below and economic failure from within.
Perfect. And to leave everyone with one final thought, the text notes that in 1990, Gorbachev won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending the Cold War.
A huge honor, and you can see why.
But looking back, did he win that prize for executing a brilliant master plan? Or did he get it for losing control of a train he started?
And that, I think, is the ultimate tragedy of Mikhail Gorbachev. He set out to be the savior of the Soviet Union. Instead, he became its undertaker. He liberated millions, but he did it by destroying the only world he ever really knew.
A fascinating lesson in unintended consequences. Hopefully that helps you connect the dots on the collapse of Soviet control. Whether you're revising or just curious, thanks for diving deep with us.
And good luck with your studies.
See you next time.